Yeah, well, this has been evolving for a long time. You know, my grandfather was a charter subscriber to Rodale's Organic Gardening and Farming magazine when it started in, what, 1949? All right, and he had a very large organic gardening compost pile, octagonal chicken house. He grew mangels in his garden and had finishing nails in the sides of his octagonal chicken house at the edge of his garden that he would skewer the sugar beets, mangels, on in the wintertime for fresh vegetables for the chickens in the wintertime. So Dad grew up in that very innovative environment, ecology, innovative environment. And I think he came to this through that, and also through the economic reality that you can't chemical your way into fertility and health. And as an economist, he understood that chemical fertilizer is like a drug trip. You know, you have to get a more potent dose to get the same hit, you know, every year, and so it becomes more toxic, more potent, and so just as an economist, he understood that nature's economy ultimately is more resilient than an imposed economy, right? And so yeah, he developed the portable electric fencing system that we use today in the early 1960s. He got a hold of some, you know, Andre Voisin grass farming thing. I remember him going down to the neighbor, and he came back and said, "I'll never talk to a neighbor again about what we're doing," because he told the neighbor that there would be a day when this farm would have 100 cows on it, and the neighbor totally laughed him to scorn and said he was an idiot. And he came home so depressed from that meeting that he never said anything to a neighbor again, you know, about what we were doing. And today, you know, we have 200, and I don't think we've scratched the surface yet. Okay, so he was on this. He built portable infrastructure. I remember very well. I was maybe 7 or 8, 9 years old, and one Sunday afternoon we got in the car, took a Sunday afternoon drive up somewhere toward Harrisonburg, and visited a guy that had little A-frame huts in the field. To this day, I don't, and Mom can't remember either whether it was lambs or chickens or ducks or pigs or what it was, but that was an epiphany for Dad. He talked about it, came back, and from that point on, everything we built, he wanted it to be portable. And part of that for him was he was such an innovator, he didn't want to be locked into a stationary structure. You know, what happens though is as you start down that path, you start seeing other unintended benefits, you know, that you didn't envision when you started. And so a lot of what we've done here is really not that clever. It's simply taking a very basic set of things like perennial, carbon cycle, animals moving. We live in a culture where it doesn't think that animals should move. You know, and you take these very simple, big picture things, and then out of that, you know, if fertility comes from an in-sourced, solar-driven carbon cycle, well, then how do we tap into that? How do we leverage that? You know, rather than trying to figure out how to or what to buy the latest thing in a bag, it sets you on a course of closing that carbon loop. Are you with me? And so a lot of what we've developed here is not because we sat down and say, how can we be innovative? It's rather you have these very, very simple ecological principles, and you say, if that's the way, if animals are going to move, then obviously we want portable infrastructure and control mechanisms. And we need water. So then we start building ponds. And you need water everywhere. So you have water everywhere, all right? And so you build these ponds. I mean, today, you know, if we have a drought, you see farmers all over the place, you know, having to go with a diesel truck and a 2,000-gallon tank and pump water out of the creek to get water to their cows. You know, meanwhile, they're a 5-generation farm. The family's been there for 5 generations, and they've never even built a pond. You know, if we took all the money in this valley that had been spent growing corn for herbivores that aren't even supposed to eat it, and had moved that soil and used that time and energy to build ponds in all the valleys up in the Blue Ridge and Alleghenies and high ground all around this valley, today we'd be drought-proof, flood-proof, and would have created Eden. The tragedy of our time is not that we're lazy. We got things to do, places to go, engines to start, you know, soccer games, right? The tragedy of our day is not that we're lazy, it's that we spend our time and energy on things that aren't the weak links. That's our tragedy. And so my prayer is that we wake up every day and we look at attacking the true weak link so that we aren't just spinning our wheels on fluff, but we're actually trying to cut through. I mean, we've got now GPS technology so that we can have driverless tractors on growing corn. We've become very good at how, but not asking, well, why should we be growing so much corn? And we've become very good at how. We've become a nation of technicians. We're like the guys that were stuck in the Brazilian jungle, the plane crash, and they're getting the chase, they're trying to stick out to civilization, so they're all hacking through the jungle, making a trail so they can get out to civilization, and the prophet in the group shoots up a tree, looks out and says, let's make sure we're going the right direction. And he says, hey, wait a minute, guys, the village is over here. And they just yell back at him and say, hey, don't bother us, look at all the progress we're making. Like Stan Parsons says, we've become incredibly adept at hitting the bullseye of the wrong target. Okay? So, it's lunchtime. Let's jump on the wagons again. I don't know if I'll do another we take very seriously and appreciatively the fact that of all the places you could have been today, you chose to spend it here with us. And we appreciate it, salute you, and are grateful that you've chosen to spend that day with us. And we trust that this will encourage and empower and enthuse you for whatever sphere of influence you have in your life and whatever dreams and new realities you want to create for yourself. So, may all of your carrots grow long and straight. May all of your radishes be large and not pithy. May the coyotes be struck blind at your pasture chickens. May all of your chicken broth be clear. May all of your pie crusts contain lard. May all of your culinary experiments and expressions be palatably delectable. May the rain fall gently on your fields, the wind be always at your back, your children rise and call you blessed, and may we all make this a much better world than we've inherited. Thank you so much.